Good afternoon, late afternoon, everyone. This is a meeting of the TriTown Boards of Health, Lee, Lennox, and Stockbridge Boards of Health combined, January 26, 2021, 4 p.m. The meeting is being recorded as we speak. Pursuant to the Governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18. This meeting is being held via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Every effort is being made to ensure that any member of the public may access the meeting in real time via technological means. Agendas will be amended to show the link and participation code to access the meeting no sooner than 48 hours before. Recordings and/or draft proceedings of the meeting will be available on our website as soon as possible. And I'm going to just go to a screen share and then we will start. Can everybody see the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, and we're off. And why is it not working? Oh, wait a minute. My first time using a PowerPoint on Zoom. So this is the agenda. It was posted in weeks ago, and
Yep.
everything within the agenda is part of the PowerPoint to make it a lot easier for the board members rather than doing it the old school way, ruffling through tons of papers, then we all get lost somewhere in the meeting. So I think it's a lot easier following along by a PowerPoint. So first item on the agenda is the October 13th, 2020 minutes. Thank you, Zach, for throwing those together. And for the board, before you make a motion to approve, if there's anything weird out of order, let us know. We had to kind of go back and put our minds together and come up with the minutes because my Zoom account got hacked back. And so what happens is we record the meetings and it gets uploaded to the cloud. And then we go back and look at the recording and do the minutes. Well, the account got hacked, so I had to restart a brand new account, and we lost all of the content. But I think Zach did an excellent job trying his best to recall the majority of the motions and approvals of the meeting. So if you find anything grossly out of order, we can make amendments.
Jim, I just have one concern. My name is spelled wrong.
Who's John?
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, here it is. No, John's spelled right. It's Kearns is spelled wrong.
Kearns. It's Kearns, not ES.
Sorry, Kearns.
There
Right.
you go.
I've told you before, my middle name is Carnes and it's got an ES in it. So I always spell yours with an ES.
Okay.
I'll fix it.
Looks fine to me.
Yeah, looks good.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the October meeting.
So moved.
Second.
So
Who
Zach,
said second? Sorry.
Ray.
Ray.
so folks, we have to do a roll call vote. So Zach will announce your name, just say yay or nay.
All right. John,
Here,
yay or nay?
yay.
Hank,
Yay.
Noel,
Yay.
Charles,
Yay.
Ray,
Yay.
Joanne,
Yay.
Diane,
Yay.
Bob.
Yay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, moving on. This is the time of the year where we attempt to do reorganization for the TriTown Board of Health Chair, as well as just reviewing the subcommittee assignments. It wasn't my expectation tonight to go through the subcommittee assignments. That's something I can send to each board individually, then you guys can decide who is interested in what committee. We haven't met a lot with these subcommittees since COVID has started, but they are three important committees that we'll try to get back on track once we hit post-COVID. But we do want to reorganize and accept any potential nominations for the TriTown Board of Health Chair. The role of the TriTown Board of Health Chair is nothing too cumbersome, but it's really the person that can represent the district, assist with if we get calls from the media, responding to certain things, and someone that can be accessible. Carissa's been the chair since 2018. Bless your soul, Carissa, but it's really up to the board if they want to nominate someone and go from there, and we'll just get that out of the way.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Dr. Kenny for chairmanship.
Jim, can I, what does this entail? I mean, Carissa, is he giving the right scoop about this? Or?
I'm not giving it up. I mean,
It usually rotates. I don't know. I did it for a couple of years and then it rotated through someone else. So I thought with it coming up that it's in the 2-year rotation that it went through someone else.
Well,
No offense to Carissa.
I'd be very happy to pick up the slack there. I mean, if Jim is not giving us an underestimate of how much it's going to entail, in which case I'll quit. But otherwise,
So basically, it doesn't include a pay raise, so that's for sure. But basically, it's a lot of it's in title only. Like if we've had personnel issues, Carissa and I would meet and kind of go over things. Sometimes, we'll get an inquiry with respect to the TriTown district, not town specific. Usually I'm the public information officer, but the TriTown Board of Health Chair will offer comments if it's a TriTown related thing. And it's really just, if I need to bounce ideas off with someone without, going to one specific town, the TriTown Board of Health Chair is the person I would talk to. It's really title only. I try to make as easy as possible to whoever's the TriTown Board of Health Chair. Carissa can speak to, her last couple of years without really trying to bug her too much.
all right. Well, thank you, Diane, for your confidence. I'll accept the nomination.
I'll second the nomination.
All right.
Thank you, Carissa.
Who motioned first? Sorry, it's hard to keep track of everybody in the different.
Diane motioned.
Diane motioned. Charles.
Carissa seconded it.
Carissa second. All right. Yays and nays? John?
Yay.
Hank?
Yay.
Noel?
Yes.
Charles?
Yay.
Yay. Carissa?
Yay.
Joanne?
Yay.
Diane?
Yay.
Bob?
Yay.
And Ray?
Yay.
All right.
Okay.
Yays have it.
Yeah, and as far as the subcommittees, I'll forward these to each individual board chair. Then we can sort that out at a later time. We do have a couple of vacancies and whatnot, but the expectation wasn't to do that tonight. All right, so we're going to jump right into the budget proposal, and I did send this out to the entire board a few days ago to review. So quick high-level highlights of the budget proposal, which we'll get into in a couple seconds. It does incorporate routine cost of living staff increases. For this year, we budgeted for 2.5%, but we sort of wait to see what the towns look at. For it could be 2%, it could be 1.5%, but we do budget up to 2.5%. It's not a foregone conclusion that the staff's going to get that, but it's something we do budget for. I feel like our philosophy as a district is cost of living is not considered a pay raise. It's a living adjustment based on the cost of living and how things inflate. Pay raises, we look at something completely different. For this year, we're only going to be asking for cost of living to try to be as sensitive as we possibly can with this budget due to COVID and the fallout that continues to happen at the municipal level on that. All other line items for the district budget have been level funded. We did budget a little bit of a reduction in fringe benefits because we do have an employee that had initially told us that they were going to ask for a family plan, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So what happens is for new board members is we have a cost worksheet through the town of Lee, because the town of Lee provides the benefits for the district employees. And so they have to negotiate their health insurance rates. Family plans different from single plans. There's Medicare, there's retirement, there's workman's comp. And so we put all the potential pay raises in, and it gives us a formula. And so we don't know the final numbers yet from the town of Lee with respect to possible increases or decreases to the actual health insurance match for the town. We have a good idea. I was hoping Chris Ketchum was going to be on this meeting, but I don't think he is, to give us an idea where he's thinking. But what I have to do is I have to present you a budget. The board has to approve it so I can forward it on to the finance committees. We may not know mid to late February what the final bottom line fringe numbers are, but it's important for the board going into this to know that it is a placeholder, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like, but it may go up or it may go down. And the last piece of that too is we always try to figure out what our fringe benefits package cost equals. For example, I don't carry health insurance and someone else may have a single family plan. Well, if a package changes in the middle of a fiscal year, we can't say no to an employee that we can't give them a family plan, or have an employee that sorry, you can't get insurance. We would have to make those adjustments in the middle of the fiscal year. That hasn't happened in a very long time, but it's something that, we try to capture when we start our budget process, what we think the fringe bottom line is going to look like, and then we make those final adjustments before it gets to the warrant articles for the town. Our web permitting is level funded. A few years ago, the towns assisted us in investing into the web permitting software, which was a new idea back in the day. And looking back on it now, we were actually the first board of health to go live on a web permitting system. So all the permits, all inspections, the money collected, everything goes through an online system now. And the reason why I'm highlighting that this year is because that played a significant role in our communications with the community at large and our permit holders. At a click of a button, Zach can send out in real time 300 plus emails to all our permit holders, letting them know what the governor's standards are, the COVID restrictions, getting information out, what with social distancing, percent capacity, what phase we're in. And I really want to highlight that investment has really paid off for us, not only from an efficiency perspective, but the new wave of communicating with the community without picking up the phone and making 300 different phone calls. We can do it in real time, quick and fast. It's not a reverse 911 or a robocall system, because we can only capture our permit holders. But, and Zach can chime in, there's a significant lot of emails that he has at the tip of his finger to send out information in real time.
And then once you send that email to them, if they have any questions, they just hit reply and it comes to my inbox, and Jim and I can get back to everybody like that. If they've got a question about tables, they can email us a picture of what their setup looks like or what they're thinking about using, because it's been hard for them with all the changes, adaptations, and people out there trying to sell the businesses things that they've had a billion questions of, hey, is this something that I can use? You know what I mean? And it's just been a great way to communicate with all permit holders about anything from little details to, I've got 6 servers that have COVID right now. What do I do? It just opens that door, and it's awesome.
Yep. Thank you, Zach. And we won't get into a little bit deeper on my proposal on establishing a new public health nurse line item, and we'll get into those talking points in a few minutes. As the board may know, the way the budgeting system is set up, it's based on a service percentage by town. And so we had redone that a few years ago, and it's based on a 3-year rolling average. So when that was adjusted 3 or 4 years ago, it was reallocated at Lee pays 33%, Lennox 43%, and Stockbridge. Well, even though we had a down year across the board on the number of inspections and services, it still yields the same percentage. So that's still pretty consistent for what we set up 3 years ago. And it's all based on services. We break down a bunch of categories, number of permits, number of inspections, inspection types, septic, laboratory, housing, and we put all those numbers in at the close of a fiscal year, and it gives us a formula on the percentage of the whole. And it's been pretty amazing how consistent it is. All right, a lot of numbers here, but basically what you want to look at is the requested FY22. This is the consolidated budget, means it's just one budget line item. It's not broken out by cost per town. It's just the total budget. We had a $13,000 increase from FY21 to FY22, and that's mainly because we've budgeted for cost of living increases, and we have a couple employees that get longevity pay. I think Zach's going on his 6th year now, and I'm going on my 50th, I think. Down by fringe, you'll see a reduction. That's the difference between the family plan and the single plan. You know, we reduced that down, and again, that could change. I'm crossing my fingers that the health insurance rates are somewhat flat again, but we just don't know that information yet. Down here, we have rentals. You know, as a district, we got to pay rent to Lee, so that's the allocations for the other towns that pay rent. Seminars, that's our education line item. You know, if we get back to that, we do have a couple employees that still need some certifications as part of their job description. It's money for CEUs, continuing education, to really promote you know, the correct credentialing and trying to get the health department staff to where they need to go. In our world of public health, a lot of certifications and licenses are needed to do just the basic operations for what we do. Let's see, communications, that sort of pays for the internet, our IT people. We don't see many changes there. Web permitting, we heard from the vendor that that's level funded for FY22. And obviously we've reduced postage significantly over the years, but we still need to do postage to a certain point. So you may ask that, well, Jimmy just said everything's web-based. Yes, but we have violation letters, there's certified mail that's got to go out, there's correction orders. In the ideal world, we can always do that online, but the Mass General law still requires certified and regular mail when we issue citations and violations to restaurants or in other locations. A lot of it's housing now, in certain other things. You know, we got to send out invoices still for the laboratory. We keep talking, Zach and I keep talking about there's a lot of movement with our certified lab. And for the new board members that are on board, is we have our own laboratory where we do our own beaches. It's a revenue generator. We sample ice in restaurants when we're actually out there physically doing inspections. We've seen a lot of nasty things under the microscope when it comes to ice in restaurants. So if you envision going into a fast food restaurant, you got the Coke machine with the ice, or the ice bin behind the bar, or the ice scoop in the back where, you know, people are just putting their hands in the ice scoop. You'd be pretty amazed what you would find under the microscope with bacteria with that. And we also test well water for the seasonal homeowners. So all of that is a net zero sum game, meaning we actually collect more than what it costs to administer that. So it's a good revenue generator. But the lab is level funded as well. Let's see, in-state travel, obviously mileage, and compensation reserve is sort of that covers the longevity and stuff like that. We put that into a separate line item just to track it. In bookkeeping, the town of Lee gets paid to do the accounting for all the bills for the district and turnovers and checks and whatnot. So what we're looking at is, in the bottom line, is it's a $29,000 increase for all three towns combined, and I'm going to show you in a second what that looks like per town. The less other towns is Lenox and Stockbridge, and then the 139 is the Lee portion. So this is the budget worksheet that I send in to Lee, and then I typically will give a separate sheet out for Lenox and Stockbridge what it does. But that's just the format and how it is. This is a breakdown of all the line items and what Lee is going to pay Lenox and then Stockbridge. So 139 for Lee, 186 and some change for Lenox, and 103.9 some change for Stockbridge. And I didn't go over the public health nursing line item. Let me just go back real quick. So we did budget for $39,520 as a new line item for the public health nursing, and I'm going to get into that in a second. And that's based on, we called up the hospital, we called up some home health care agencies on what like the going rate is for a registered nurse, and it's based on a 19-hour work week. And we don't know for sure what that's going to look like, but I feel really confident in this request to get whatever the public health nurse program is going to look like in some form or another up and running for next fiscal year. We're still bringing in a lot of grant money for the COVID fight. And we feel really confident, if the cost goes up here a little bit, we can offset with the rest of the grant money. We still got about another $30,000 through December 2021 to assist with COVID-19, and that's staffing, contact tracing, supplies, whatever is needed to deal with that. But I feel really confident as a starting point, this is a good request line item. Again, we already showed this slide. That's the breakdown by town. This slide here is, I always like to show like what the actual net of what the cost is going to be per town. And so what we did here is the FY22 increase. This is the Lee increase, the 96.96, 12,634 for Lenox, and 7,000 for Stockbridge. As part of this proposal, we're going to ask the towns to eliminate and not budget separately their VNA public health nurse line item that's currently separate by town. Lee has a separate warrant line item, Lenox has a separate warrant, and Stockbridge has a separate warrant. So we're going to ask to eliminate those line items because we're consolidating those services into the TriTown budget. So if you see, the actual net cost of the town for Lee is a $14,000 savings. The reason why that's so high for Lee is because for many, many years, Lee actually funded the public health nursing for St. Mary's School, which is a private school. That's no longer the case anymore. And so we're going to be asking Lee to not budget at $24,000, but rather invest into the TriTown budget for the public health nursing. Lenox, there's, it's a $6,000 bottom line increase, but if you look, for some reason, Lenox always budgeted really low. But and I'm going to get into that and probably the rationale why. It's just the way the old VNA public health nurse system was set up was super old and archaic, and nobody ever touched it. Nobody ever looked into it. No one ever questioned it. And I'm willing to bet at one point, the towns were probably getting more than $6,000 than what they were budgeting. And then Stockbridge, there's a savings of about $650. So I think that's a relatively easier pill to swallow when we actually look at the bottom line of what the request looks like. Any questions so far before I get into the public health nursing? Okay. All right, this is a busy sheet. Thank you, Zach, for putting this together. I wouldn't worry about the stuff at the top. These are sort of like turnovers. I mean, Zach collects money every week, then he turns it back over. What you want to look at is look at the FY20, where at the bottom where it says Lee, Lenox, and Stockbridge. In FY19, we brought in about 210,000 and some change. And in FY20, we did have a little bit of a reduction, around $7,000 for the district. And to me, that's a win because kind of COVID sort of hit in the spring. And I was actually estimating that we were going to take a significant loss, a $7,000 loss at the beginning of a pandemic. It's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing on the planet either. What we'll be telling is what the FY21 revenue will look like. But, you know, Zach collects a lot of money for that, and they'll be interested to know. And hopefully, as we start to vaccinate and the economy starts to open up, hopefully like April or May, that's a sweet spot for us for all these special events in the spring. And I'm anticipating if we start to see the decrease in COVID numbers, I'm thinking that the economy is going to want to recover, and there's going to be a lot of special events come spring and summer. That's just my gut instinct, because I feel like the restaurants have lost a lot of money, and I think they're going to try to figure out ways to recover that. So we did lose a little bit of revenue, but it is what it is in this world of the pandemic. Any questions on revenue?
Mm-mm.
It's an easy crowd. So here's our charts. You know, if you really go back to FY18, we've done a pretty fantastic job trying to figure out ways to increase revenue, and we were really trending really well until we really hit COVID. But you know, we have increased our fees to adjust, you know, for the cost of the real costs to deliver these services to the community. And we were always trying to figure out ways through grants and other services to try to maximize as much revenue as we possibly can. Now, we'll never get 100% of collection of revenue to offset the operating budget, because health departments do a lot of different things that, you know, that we can't charge. You know, we investigate housing, and there's other things we do that we can't charge a tenant a fee for an inspection if they have no heat and they're in violation of the sanitary code. So there are some services and mandates that boards of health are required to do as a service to the community that we can't collect that revenue. But we've tried really, really hard to bring in as much revenue as we possibly can to lessen the burden to the taxpayers. And it's a good reflection. If you go back the last 3 to 4 years, we've had a steady increase in revenue until we hit the pandemic. That's individual towns, that's combined. So we bring in about 50% of our operating budget now, which is higher than many boards of health. You know, most boards of health bring in between 15 and 20% of their operating. They collect fees, but it's a lot of towns, the fees are really low. But TriTown, the way we're set up, you know, we try to maximize the fees as much as we possible to offset as much as we possibly can. Again, we've done a pretty good job, you know, bringing in the revenues. You know, from FY18 to FY19, you'll see a big difference there. Our fees were significantly low at one point, and when we redesigned the TriTown district and our funding formula, we went from a very old, archaic population model to a services delivered system. And we spent a long time assessing and looking at what other Berkshire communities charge, what other health districts charge, and we were significantly low, and we had to make those adjustments from FY18 to FY19, and that's why you see a significant difference in revenue. Okay, so this is probably the biggest conversation to have with the budget. So originally, how it was set up for a very long time is Lee had a line item for the VNA, Lennox had a line item for the VNA, and Stockbridge had a line item for the VNA. And so when I first got back, and had been like that for many years, and I don't ever recall TriTown ever having a public health nurse, as far as I can remember. Many municipalities across the state had always traditionally hired like the VNA to do their public health nursing. You know, the flu clinics, minimum communicable disease investigations. some other services like blood pressure screenings, obviously the tuberculosis. And so for a very long time, a lot of these towns paid minimal dollars to do like the basics of the basics. And so one of the things that we recognized a couple of years ago is in Porch-Lite VNA, they're out of business now, but Porch-Lite VNA, and we used to have the Berkshire VNA, and somehow it got flipped. We got rid of that and then went with Porch-Lite. That was before me coming back as director. I'm not sure why, but so Porch-Lite was getting paid to do the basic services for the public health nursing. And for a while, it seemed to be working okay, pre-pandemic. But a couple of years ago, we had met, the boards of health, the TriTown boards of health met about this topic of conversation a couple of years ago to really start thinking about like, okay, what does Porch-Lite do? How much are we paying them? And so we were starting to, have those conversations with them. But one of the challenges that we had as a health department is that the boards of selectmen actually signed the Porch-Lite contract. So Lee would sign one, Lance would sign one, Stockbridge would sign one. And so there wasn't a lot of accountability, oversight, looking at the list of communicable diseases, assessing, the prevalence in the community. Everything just disappeared into a black hole. And actually Diane and I started, looking into this a couple of years ago and asking questions, and, and although they were under contract, they didn't provide us a lot of services and hours. And so we started running into challenges when we started looking into the Lyme disease issue. We weren't getting information out of Maven. They were doing it part-time. And so what had happened was we started those conversations kind of early. And so before the pandemic hit, they got a new CEO at the time. And so we had met and we kind of went through everything and said, look, I don't need you to be sending communicable disease reports to the select board. It's the boards of health that have the jurisdiction with respect to communicable disease and investigation and mitigation. And so we were having a very difficult time trying to get the information from Porch-Lite. So I met with the new executive director. We kind of went through the contract. I said, okay, I'll sign the contract. The towns will continue paying, but you need to send us all the reports. And so that was executed. And then a month later, COVID hit. And then as soon as COVID hit, after they executed the contract with the towns, they went out of business. And so we were stuck in a very weird predicament. And we tried hiring and we advertised multiple weeks for a registered nurse with a competitive hourly rate at the beginning of a pandemic, and we got 0 applications. And while that was happening, cases were coming in, and we needed to do something fast and furious. And it didn't matter, how great or how bad that was. So we entered into a contract with Berkshire Regional Planning. So they have their Berkshire Public Health Alliance program. And so they cover multiple towns. And so Leslie Drager is the current public health nurse that we contract with. And, I want to preface this conversation by saying that Leslie's been fantastic. She's been great. She's been responsive. I can't ask for anything better from Leslie. But from the collective piece of that is, she does have a full-time job. She covers 20 towns, and so there's limited interaction and services that TriTown's getting with that contract. We're in contract with them because we're in the middle of a pandemic. We understand that. We're not going to stop that till things settle out. But in speaking with some of the other board members, community residents, and even the town administrators, and even the staff, I think it's time that we need to think about building our own public health nursing system. And what that looks like is yet to be seen. One of the initial plans I like to see happen is trying to reach out to the nurses on the board and set up a subcommittee and kind of think about what that may look like. And so there are things that we need to have done. You know, we can't provide a vaccine clinic to the Lee Housing Authority or the Lenox Housing Authority on our own. We have to rely on others. And while I appreciate what Berkshire Regional Planning's doing and what Leslie's doing, I think post-pandemic, I think TriTown District deserves to build their nursing program in a way that meets the services of our community. And so I'm going to go through some highlights on what we're thinking. Porch Lake closed, Sharon. You know, and sometimes I feel like we're at the deli counter approach. And I don't know if that's a new term I just coined, but like, it's sort of like take your number and wait, you know, because you have a nurse who's covering 20 towns and they're having issues and we're having issues. And it just, to me, it was like an epiphany, that kind of aha moment that like, we need to at least try to find a nurse or a consultant to help us build up a nursing program. How do we become a vaccine site? How can we do our own flu clinics where we can get revenue? Because we can charge insurance company for administrative fees to give vaccines. So if TriTown had our own nurse and we gave out 300 flu shots a year, that's $15,000, $18,000 we can recoup. That will offset the salary of the nurse. There's tons of grants out there. There's wellness grants out there, and there's other services that I think our community residents deserve to have. And I think that's something we need to seriously consider and approve. The last four bullets are ideas on better oversight. You know, if I get a lot of, for example, Diane will send me a text, I need the numbers for, you know, the joint labor meeting. I have access to Maven, but I'm not a clinical nurse. Or if someone has a clinical question, we need to be able to respond back to our community with a staff member that can provide that service.
Anything I can do to help in that department, Jim, let me know.
You want to work for TriTown? I'll send you an application. So the first bullet was really just, you know, the rationale on why we're requesting what we need. This page is sort of, here's all the roles and responsibilities currently that's required. By law, we're supposed to have a nurse on retainer for the TB and the communicable diseases and the foodborne illnesses, obviously the COVID, the influenza. There's a whole laundry list of communicable diseases that boards of health are required to investigate and follow through on. That's got slid under the rug a little bit because we're fighting COVID. But when we're in non-COVID times, there are things that go into the Maven system, you know, that we need to investigate. You know, we've had, I won't say multiple, but we've had a variety of large-scale foodborne illness outbreaks that need to be addressed. The health inspectors are sanitary inspectors. They're not clinical folks. And while we will investigate the physical site to see if there's bad food, temperatures, there's a whole clinical piece that goes with that. And I think we need to have those resources to so I can have the health inspectors focus on health inspector stuff and have clinical staff focus on clinical staff. Camp inspections is a big burden. We're required by law to look at every medical record when we do a camp inspection. And we have not done a very good job about that over the last few years. We do the best that we can. We'll spot check and we'll make sure all the documents are in place and the staff will do the best thing that they do. But they don't know what they're looking at when they're looking at medical records. And having a nurse, that would be a role of responsibility that would help lessen the burden for the health department staff. You know, we have a high percentage of seniors and at-risk folks. We could have a nurse helping, you know, working in the community, blood pressure screenings. There are other services that I think the community we could set up for the community that would offset the cost of funding a part-time nurse. And some other, you know, requirements too. We have a high prevalence of Lyme disease. And that season's getting longer and longer, right? With global warming and other climate change factors. You know, we have this long extended tick season It's happening in February, March, and as far as December. In Lyme disease, while it doesn't go unnoticed, we don't have all the answers, but like there's a whole follow-up that we should be working on with the community in practitioners and primary cares on Lyme disease. And there's other thoughts and ideas too on the rationale of funding a public health nurse. Any thoughts and ideas on that? I'll kind of open that up.
Just a part-time position, Jim, you're talking about?
Right. I did budget for part-time.
Yeah.
I think it can get significantly costly when if we budget for someone over 20 hours, we're required to offer health insurance.
Right.
And I think the rationale right now is to get it funded like a startup. Like here's what we think what a part-time position is going to cost us. Try to find someone. I'm hoping we can find a nurse that has experience, or we find a consultant to help us build it up. But like there's a whole thing with the state you got to work on, to become a vaccine site. There's a lot of things that need to happen that frankly I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to bill insurance companies. So I think yes, the short answer is part-time first and see how it goes.
So Jim, have you advertised since like last March?
No.
Has-
No.
Why are you reluctant to?
So I think we're just so deep into COVID right now, and Leslie has a handle on all the cases, and it's hard to try to hire someone and just unload that and then put it on someone new. I think for consistency purposes, Ray, we're just kind of we have a contract with them through June.
Yeah.
And so, if we have to extend that for a short period until we settle on a nurse, we're not going to get an interruption of services. That will not happen. When the goal is to try to find somebody, and if we don't, we need to figure out the next steps. And one of the thoughts is, we have a nurse on each board. I would like to sit down with you at some point, either on Zoom, the three of you, to get your thoughts and ideas and how to frame that up and move that along. I really feel like when we did advertise, there was so much unknown and the hospital was overrun and overburdened. I don't think anyone wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think that COVID did drive a lot of people to early retirement and wanting to get out of clinical settings. There might be that population to tap into.
I have privately reached out to a few people, even Betty Kirby up in administration at BHS, and she just kind of shrugged her shoulders and said, good luck. Just what you said, people are out of it and want to stay out of it for a while.
Yeah.
But I still think if we can just reach out to people that we've known in the field, we may, amongst all of us, be able to put out feelers to figure out something, I hope. I even asked a couple of retired nurses that I knew that used to work for the VNA. None of them were interested.
Yeah.
But just keep on plugging.
Yeah, so that's the plan. I mean, I think I was able to bullet out the rationale behind of what we need to do.
Thanks.
All right, well, and I'll just get through the presentation, then I'll back up. And then
Jim, can I ask you a question? I think you made a good description of why you think we should have a public health nurse. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm not trying to, I'm encouraging more discussion about this if we think it's appropriate, but I'd like to make a motion that we, as the combined boards, support Jim's idea that we should have a public health nurse under the TriTown auspices.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So when we get to the end, when I ask for a motion to accept the budget, that inherently will be your support mechanism for the public health nurse.
All right, I'll withdraw the motion then. That's the end of that.
So what I'll do is, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and I'm going to ask for a motion for the budget, and then I'll just wrap up with accomplishments in COVID.
Okay.
So if anyone, so is there any specific questions with respect to the budget request?
No.
So seeing none, if there's I will entertain a motion to accept and approve the budget as drafted and send it along to the finance committees.
So move.
Second,
Who is the second?
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Charlie, yeah.
Sorry, I can't see all the thumbnails at once. I'm clicking back and forth. All right, and we'll go down the road. John?
Aye, or so move, aye.
Hi. Hank?
Aye.
Ray?
I,
Charles?
Aye.
Carissa? I saw her lips move. Joanne?
I,
Diane?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And Noel? Aye. All right.
Thank you, everybody. All right, so I wanted to also, wrap up with, just as a reflection, which I always, typically when we do the budget package, I always try to highlight what we're good at, what we're not good at, what we need to work on. It's always something I always try to do, so I'm gonna do that now. We didn't take a significant hit on revenues. I call that a win. I call that an accomplishment. The Southern Berkshire Household Hazardous Waste Collection, which we now have taken over. For board members that may not know, 17 Southern Berkshire towns joined together for the household hazardous waste collection. That's all the chemicals and the paints that we collect. For many, many years, CET out of Pittsfield administered that. And so they abruptly got out a couple of years ago that left all of us kind of hanging. And so we met with Chris Ketchen and a few others, and we were about to just stop doing it, but there was a little bit of life left in that. And so TriTown, we committed to taking that over and reestablishing that program. And I think we're on our second year now on it. So basically we administer the whole thing now. I pay the staff to go to it. I negotiate the contracts with Clean Harbors. We work with Great Barrington. We work with Lee as the two locations we go back and forth on. We do twice a year now. We set up the assessments. We send them out, and it's been going super strong. This last event, which was done in June, Zach?
Yeah, June.
It was delayed to COVID. It was insane. We had 300 plus people sign up, because I think a lot of people from New York and others that are seasonal homeowners stayed, and it was just it was a successful chaos. And so everyone pre-registers, and it just reaffirms in how well we're running it. And hats off to the staff for dealing with all the phone calls. Great Barrington and Lee for stepping up, for setting up the physical site, the towns for paying into it. And it seems that it's getting bigger and bigger every year. And it's just another example of TriTown delivering services to a regional approach. And everything we do at TriTown, it's on a regional approach. TriTown is the oldest health district. We serve our 3 towns. That's a regional approach. We have our tobacco program that covers 16 towns. That's a regional approach. We have the tobacco retailer training, which we've reduced by illegal sales of tobaccos to minors by 70%. That's a regional approach. We have the mass in motion grant, regional approach. Household hazardous waste, regional approach. And that's going to kind of tie into my final thoughts as we start to look into the future and over the horizon of public health in Massachusetts and what that's going to look like. Since COVID has started, we have been recognized by multiple agencies as we are the oldest health district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts since 1929. And the way we're set up, it's sustainable, we streamline, and we deliver high level of services. And it took a pandemic for the state and legislators and decision makers to finally look at the public health structure in Massachusetts and how bad it is. And the reason why I say it's bad I don't mean that intentionally, but like you have 351 cities and towns. There are 351 boards of health. And there's so much inequity in that, meaning you can have a town that's poor and you can't afford a health department to deliver services, or versus an affluent town that can have 30 inspectors. Health departments are only budgeted on the backs of the taxpayers. In the funding structure, the minimum qualifications, the sharing of resources and delivery needed to change. And we've been talking about that for so long. And with COVID, the state found so many gaps, from public health nursing services, the health department, to enforcing COVID restrictions. And so I think it's finally, I think we're almost there where the state's going to be looking at significant changes in health districts, the formulation, the existing, and how to create new ones. And so House Bill 403 was actually passed. That was an act on strengthening local and public health systems. That was signed by the governor. And while I don't know what that will look like today, it's probably going to look like, okay, TriTown, you're going to get X number of dollars per capita every year to fund your budget. And so whatever number that looks like, that's going to reduce the strain on the taxpayers to fund TriTown and keep us going. Every other state is either county government or they're funded by the State Department of Public Health, except for Massachusetts. And I think there's going to be so many things to learn coming out of COVID. And TriTown's right there on the cusp of being recognized as a program that delivers high level services. We do have a weakness in public health nursing, which we're hopefully going to fix, but TriTown is set up for the long duration, even after when I retire. So there's a lot of good things coming out of COVID. You know, there's silver linings if we can find anything, that the whole system needs to change, and what that looks like. Some other accomplishments. We secured another $100,000 for the regional tobacco program. We got about another $100,000 in federal CARES Act and public health trust funds to deliver COVID-19. And some of that's offsetting, you know, Zach's time, my time, the hiring of of Laura, the LPN that's helping us with COVID response, paying the contracts for the public health nursing, contact tracing, PPE, supplies. We've even given back money to all three towns, like they purchased, you know, like for example, we had to retrofit the municipal buildings for the elections. I had some leftover money, so I paid those towns back so they can spend money on other things. So we were able to save a lot of money for the towns on this. We have another $30,000 right now that's going to get us through the end of December, and we're being told that there could be significant more funding coming to offset. All from the CARES Act coming from the federal level, that we'll be able to continue our response without asking the taxpayers to fund that. Well, in some form or another, taxpayers are paying for something, but you know, for the Lee, Lennox, and Stockbridge taxpayers, it won't look in the form of an operating budget. We'll be able to offset those costs based on the monies that we can possibly get. You know, we've always had great relationships with our departments and business sector, and I think COVID just reinforced and strengthened that that communication in our relationship with the business sector. We've always had pretty good communication with the permit holders, but they're probably sick and tired of seeing Zach's emails. But I feel like they're very appreciative in the streamlined communication that we've set up with them for COVID.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and you know, we've always had good relationships with the school committees, but you know, they're a different board and we're a different board, and you know, we don't cross a lot of paths pre-COVID, but we've really strengthened our relationship with the school committees and their subcommittees. I'm meeting with the superintendents weekly. We're speaking on the weekends. We're texting all the time between Bill Cameron and Mike Richard, and I feel like we've really, I don't want to use the word we've reestablished ourselves, because we've been established for so long, but I just think it's recognizable in how important TriTown is to the community. Departmental response to COVID, just threw some highlights in there. You know, when COVID hit, TriTown never shut down. And I think it's important to recognize that, you know, like police departments didn't shut down, obviously fire and EMS didn't shut down, but when everything shut down and everybody was working from home, TriTown continued on. And I think it's a reflection of the boards, it's a reflection of the staff. I can't say anything that I've already said to the staff and how appreciative I am with them. You know, we have kids that are working remotely, you know, everyone's stepping up to the plate, and we've never shut down and we've responded. And I think it's a true reflection of our commitment to the communities. We're doing business a little bit differently, but I want to just reaffirm that, like, we've never shut down and we continue to fight the fight. You know, with the exception of the Christmas holiday, nobody's taking vacation. Everyone's stepping up to the plate. Even on off days and weekends, staff are responding to my crazy emails. And I think, you know, that's a true reflection of how a health district should operate in a community. I've already talked about the online permitting. We reviewed hundreds of communication and operational plans and procedures for restaurants. Like, you know, when the state put that burden on us, they said, oh, just do the best that you can. Well, we've really stepped up to help as many people as we possibly can. We've adapted to Zoom. I think we love Zoom now. I think it's a great way to do our board meetings now, even after post-pandemic. I really like Zoom. I think we've all adapted to that. And one other thought I had was, like, you know, boards of health, we have our jurisdictional authority in what we do. You know, we deal with restaurants and retail stores, but there are other business sectors that we traditionally never really deal with. Barbershops, manufacturing, doctor's offices. We never really directly had relationships with them because we don't permit them, we don't inspect them. And so I think COVID brought that out, where when the governor did all his shutdowns, the boards of health were responsible for like everything in the business sector. And so we had to kind of get into those doors and have those communications. And I felt that was a silver lining in expanding our relationships with the community at large that we never would have had the opportunity before to have. And again, you know, and on a sour note, but here are some COVID metrics we had within the district. Now, obviously that was from March of 2020 to the 20th, which was a week ago. Those were the total COVID numbers for our 3 towns. I think I may have underestimated the phone inquiries, Zach, but there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. All day, every day.
You may have gotten 50 today.
Yeah, yeah.
Formal if you look at the cease and desist orders, they're all in Lee. That's low, and I think that's a reflection and how well the community's adapted to compliance. We had 3 cease and desist orders, and I think that was the exception, not the norm. We had some weird situations early on in COVID where we had to get involved. We had a drive-in thing over the summer that became an issue, but very, very minimal enforcement. I feel like, and Zach, correct me, because you know your boots are on the ground closer than I am right now on some of the businesses, but like usually if we get a complaint, we treat it as education. We reach out to them and we get pretty good response and compliance.
Yeah. I'd say most of the complaints we get, it's lack of knowledge and resources, and we talk to them and then they're on board. And most places that complain or that get a complaint and we respond, it's not usually the same repeat offenders like you see with restaurants and stuff, with like not cleaning something. It's people take it seriously, and once they know the right thing to do, they keep doing it, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I think it's also a reflection of our relationship building. And you know, I feel so grateful to work at a place we have such relationship capital with our community. Now, nobody's perfect. We do have problems from time to time. I won't sugarcoat it, but we have such great wealth of relationship capital at the TriTown district. Maybe because we've been doing it for 94 years. I don't know, but we always try our best to achieve compliance without enforcement. Enforcement is a tool needed to get compliance. It's not, that should not be the primary way of doing business. That's just my philosophy. We know we did have some nursing home outbreaks. We lost quite a few people, unfortunately, but we're working really closely with them. They're doing really well now. They're getting vaccinated. We had a couple swaps with schools from remote to hybrid. Lee's back open this week in hybrid, and Lennox went hybrid last week, I think, right after Martin Luther King weekend. We've wrapped up the first responder clinics, first round. There's the new vaccine hotline, and I'll stop the share and I can just open it up on other COVID updates. So there is some confusion with respect to vaccinations with the 75 plus population. So the governor yesterday announced that we're going to be going into step 1 of phase 2 starting the 1st, which is next Monday. Tomorrow, the websites are going to activate the links for people to register. I think people got confused because the governor spoke a couple of days ago, and then everyone started going to the websites and realized that there was no links to vaccination clinics. So to repeat, the links are going to go live tomorrow. People can start registering tomorrow, but it's going to start next Monday. And that's for the 75 plus population. So we have 3 static clinics set up, one in North Adams, one at the BCC Patterson Fieldhouse, and right now we got the W.E. Du Bois Middle School in Great Barrington. So those sites are going to stay like that for a while. And so Walgreens is starting to offer, Berkshire Allergy Care is offering, and I think there's going to be some expansion there. And we're also working through BHS with CHP to see if they can go out and do mobile vaccinations. So in my mind, we have like the Lee Senior Center. Could we get CHP that could go there, versus the clinics for people that may not have access to transportation? We're also working with the councils on aging to see if they can assist seniors that may need help registering. They have internet issues, they're not computer literate. And I've spoken to Lennox, and I think we have a Zoom call tomorrow with a bunch of COAs. And a lot of people are going to step up to help people register, to help meet their needs. So I think we're working our way through it. Obviously, all this is contingent upon vaccine, but we have a strong relationship with Berkshire Health Systems. They just got approved as a vaccine depot, where they're going to get the vaccine, and then others are going to be pulling from that vaccine to supply to do all the priority groups. So right now, we want to focus on the seniors, and there's going to be a strong push over the next couple of weeks to start working on that and ramping up those clinics. Berkshire Regional Planning and all the partners have told me that contingent upon vaccine, they can pull off 1,000 vaccines a day per clinic. If we have the vaccine to do it, just get us the vaccine and let's get it done. And so that's where we're at today. There's been some confusion. I wanted to clear that up a little bit because we've been getting a lot of calls because people are going to the website. They're not seeing anything. There's frustration, there's confusion, people are scared, there's anxiety, but we're being told that those links will become active tomorrow.
One more thing that's being done for the nursing home residents, Jim, is the monoclonal antibodies. And Berkshire Health Systems is allowing staff to help with that. And we're providing the smart pumps to infuse it as well. And that's been going very well. It's a lot of scrambling within the hospital to get the staff and the supplies needed to get over there, but it's been working out well.
Yeah, everyone's really stepping up. It's really, to me, it's like if we just had the vaccines, like we can get this thing done. It's harder to ramp up and do a clinic for 100 people than it is for 1,000. 1,000, you just add a couple more nurses, you got the staff already there, which just get it going. And this thing was like, okay, let's do 1 round for first responders, let's wait 3 weeks. Like you're losing 3 weeks. And so, and I understand, like, the senior, from a scientific perspective, we understand why they're setting up these priority groups. It's these certain sectors that enhance the spread of and transmission of disease. I think we get that, but I think the general public, they don't understand. They don't understand, like, why are you doing the prisons and not the seniors? And it's just, you know, everything that we're seeing and reading from the federal, national level, all the way down, like, just get us the vaccines. Like, we'll make it happen. And so, and I will say that I feel that the Berkshires are way ahead compared to other sectors of the Commonwealth. I really do.
Jim, can I ask a question? I know that, you know, on an annual basis now we have influenza vaccines. You know, they're polyvalent against a couple of different variants, and it seems to be the case that we renew them, revise them annually, and we have a vaccination program for influenza annually. Now, as far as I understand, the influenza virus is a lot different from the coronavirus, and I was hoping to ask Noel to weigh in on this. Noel, what would you, if you were going to look at, let's say, 2 or 3 years from now, how would you see an ongoing coronavirus vaccination program going? Would it be annual, or how would you envision that, do you think?
I don't think anyone can give you an answer on that right now. We do know that immunity to the common coronaviruses that cause colds, one of the difficulties of developing a vaccine to prevent the common cold is that the immunity wanes over the course of a very few years. And there is concern that immunity to COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, will also wane. And it's entirely possible that we may be set up for a scenario of having to repeat vaccinations at periodic, some sort of periodic basis. But at this point, I don't think anyone can give you much more than an educated guess of what it might be like. But I think it's a possibility that you have to bear in mind that it may be something that will go with your influenza immunization not every annually, but perhaps every 3rd year, 5th year, something of that sort. But it's future events that will determine this.
Thanks, Noel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's all the updates I have. But, you know, everyone's working together. It's been an unprecedented year. I think many people are working hard, and we're just hoping to get this. Let's ramp up these vaccines and get this thing where we need to be.
Jim, I have a question about the public health nurse position. Sure. Sorry for my ignorance, but does that have to be an RN, or can an LPN do that?
Yeah, RN.
It has to be an RN.
Yeah. So we actually have an LPN on staff.
Yeah, I knew that.
That can provide services, but ideally, we can't create a vaccine program like where we actually register with the state and get vaccines without a registered nurse.
I see.
You know, in the register, you know, the public health nurse traditionally doesn't provide a lot of clinical work. It's really flu clinics, understanding communicable diseases, but the minimum requirements, you definitely need to have an RN, especially if there's going to be annual monies coming into districts. Hopefully, from a per capita perspective, there are minimum requirements people need to meet. They're like, you know, the state's not going to give a small health department that all have part-time agents that don't have credentials funding. So we want to strive for the highest level possible to meet those minimum qualifications. And believe me, like, I would love to see an LPN, you know, because there'd be cost savings there too. But ideally, we need to have a registered nurse. Question.
Jim, I have a question. Are you prepared, if needed, to give a detailed accounting of the Federal CARES Act money? I'm just anticipating at times, you know, the look back can be uncomfortable. Like, what did you guys do with that money, so to speak? And I know I'm talking informally, but a careful accounting of that. I'm not asking for it personally. I believe you and trust you, but not everybody will. So I imagine you have an accounting system to that. And I know it's not supposed to be a part of the forward-looking budgetary work you've done for us today, but that's just something to keep in mind for transparency.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I just submitted a detailed account to the state with all our allocations. So we're required to report that to the state. So that has already been done on our end. The towns actually got CARES Act money too. So hopefully they're doing something similar with their funds. But yeah, absolutely. One thing I can hold our head high on, Zach and I we're crazy when it comes down to the penny and everything coming in and out of the district.
I'll walk over to town hall for like 50 cents.
And we're audited every year too, so, our grants, we get audited, our operational funding, we get audited. So TriTown's not this like offshoot nonprofit group that we kind of do our own thing. We're a municipal organization. There's significant accounting. We have chain of custodies and to the dollar that we have to report on. And we're very confident that those systems have been in place for a long time.
So do we,
You're on mute, Charlie.
do we
He
need
muted
a motion
himself.
to approve the budget?
We did, I think we did that.
Okay, so do we need to vote on that then, or have we already voted on it?
You already voted on
You
it.
voted.
All right, sorry, I got a little lost track.
So we're all done unless there's a new agenda items someone wants to bring up. If not, I can let you guys go.
Move to adjourn.
So moves. Second.
Move.
Aye.
All right, hang on, sorry. We got Hank, Noel, Charles,
Aye.
John, I got you, Carissa,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Diane.
Aye.
All right, I got everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.